5 Most Famous Female Serial Killers Around the World. Number 5. Judy Buenoano. Born on April 4, 1943, Quanah, Texas, USA. She was a devious serial killer who murdered her husband, son and boyfriend over the span of 12 years. Buenoano's criminal activities primarily involved poisoning her victims. She used various methods to administer the poison, such as arsenic and other toxic substances. Her motive for the killings was often financial gain, as she stood to benefit from life insurance policies and other assets left behind by her victims. Buenoano's crimes were uncovered in 1984. She was sentenced to death and executed in the electric chair in 1998. Making her the first woman to be executed in Florida in 150 years. Number 4. Juana Barraza. Born on December 27, 1957, Epoyucan, Mexico. Dubbed the Old Lady Killer, Juana Barraza was a professional wrestler and serial killer from Mexico City, Mexico. Between 1998 and 2006, 16 elderly women were found strangled to death throughout Mexico City. All of the victims were aged 60 or over, lived alone and were specifically targeted by Barraza. She would knock on their doors and pretend to be a government worker. Once she gained the trust of her victims, Barraza would attack and strangle them with phone cables or items of clothing. Barraza was apprehended in 2006 and sentenced to a staggering 759 years in prison, where she still remains to this day. Her motivation to kill allegedly stems from her hatred of her mother, who allowed men to rape Barraza as a child. Number 3. Karla Homolka. Born on May 4, 1970, Port Credit, Mississauga, Canada. She is a Canadian convicted serial killer who became infamous for her involvement in the rape, torture, and murder of 3 teenage girls in the early 1990s, along with her then-husband Paul Bernardo. Homolka met Bernardo in 1987, and they began a relationship that later turned into a deadly partnership. Their first victim was Homolka's younger sister, Tammy Homolka, whom they drugged, raped, and accidentally killed in December 1990. In 1991, Homolka and Bernardo escalated their crimes. They kidnapped, raped, tortured, and murdered Leslie Mahaffey, a 14-year-old girl, and Kristen French, a 15-year-old girl. The heinous acts committed against these victims were recorded on videotapes, which were later used as crucial evidence during their trial. Number 2. Beverly Allitt. Born on October 4, 1968, Grantham, United Kingdom. She is a British serial killer who gained infamy for her actions as a nurse in the 1990s. Allitt worked as a pediatric nurse at Grantham and Kesteven Hospital. She targeted vulnerable children under her care, inflicting harm and causing several deaths. She used her position as a nurse to harm the children, often administering lethal doses of drugs such as insulin or potassium. Her victims ranged in age from just 7 weeks old to 5 years old. In 1993, Beverly Allitt stood trial and was found guilty of 4 counts of murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 6 counts of causing grievous bodily harm. She received multiple life sentences and is currently serving her sentence at Rampton Secure Hospital in Nottinghamshire, England. Number 1. Leonardo Cianciulli. Born on April 18, 1894, Montella, Italy. Also known as the soap maker of Correggio, was an Italian serial killer who operated in the early 20th century. Cianciulli is infamous for her gruesome crimes, which involved murdering women and turning their bodies into soap and tea cakes. To carry out her killings, she would invite her victims to her home, promising them potential employment or the opportunity to arrange marriages for their children. Once inside her house, she would use an axe or a cleaver to murder them. Afterward, she would dismember the bodies, boiling them in large pots, and then converting the remains into soap cakes or tea cakes. She believed that by transforming her victims into soap and cakes, she could purify their souls and extract their fortune. She also claimed that the soap she made from their fat was superior in quality. During her trial, Cianciulli was found guilty of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison and 3 years in a criminal asylum. She spent the remainder of her life in prison until her death on October 15, 1970.